Well, welcome everyone. I'm Tonya Lahatte. I'm a functional medicine provider that specializes in treating mycotoxin illness. And today I'm doing a webinar for y'all, and we're going to be diving into one of the most overlooked health threats, mold. So this webinar is not just about black mold, it's about all mold, especially the toxic molds that affect people's health that they can live with for years and not even realize that they have. So one of the reasons I'm doing this webinar is because mycotoxin illness, something we call chronic inflammatory response syndrome, is something I'm very passionate about because it's something I've actually experienced myself, and I know how devastating it can be to a family, to someone's, I see people lose their house, I see marriages end over it, I see people lose their jobs, and unfortunately there's not a lot of recognition of mold illness out in our medical system. So this is a really unmet need. So hopefully by the end of this webinar you'll have the tools you need to take action, and we're going to include in it access to an at-home mold test kit, a mycotoxin lab kit for those who want to look at their internal exposures, and a mycotoxin detox protocol if you know that you need to get started in recovering from mold. So first slide, I want to talk about understanding mold and its impact, the hidden impact of mold. Mold is more than what you see in your bathroom walls or your basements. What happens is mold itself releases something called mycotoxins. These are tiny invisible particles that can invade your body and cause serious health problems. These toxins accumulate over time, and most people can live with them for years without even knowing it. For example, if you have a diagnosis of chronic fatigue or brain fog or immune suppression, many of these times you're probably suffering from mold and don't even know that it's in your home. This was what happened to me. I lived in a new home, so when I was getting sick, I didn't think that, I didn't even consider mold as probably being one of the possible causes of what was going on with me. And I lived in a moldy home for almost 2.5 years before I realized that this was mold. So that's why I'm going to be offering an at-home test kit, because I really feel like everyone should test their home, even if they don't think that they've had a mold exposure or they don't see mold visibly in their home. I never found the mold in my home. I suspect it came from a rainbow vacuum cleaner, but I didn't have any water damage to my home. I just had some contamination in my crawl space, and then, like I said, I had a rainbow vacuum cleaner that grew mold in it from being put in a closet with still moist that was dark and warm. So the health risk of mold toxins, like I said, they're dangerous. They're really difficult to detect because they can accumulate over time and affect your health. The symptoms can vary from person to person. Some of the most common symptoms are chronic fatigue, brain fog, respiratory illnesses or issues, conditions like autoimmune disorders, hormonal imbalances, depression, new onset anxiety without cause, numbness and tingling, and most of all that I think is the most important is what I call the mystery illness. Recently, last week, I have a gentleman that I have been treating for mycotoxin illness, and he brought in his teenage son. His teenage son has been diagnosed with mental illness, and he he doesn't have mental illness, he has mold illness. So what's happened is this child has been living in this moldy home, and since he was 5 years old. His dad has been sick since 2016, and they never knew what it was. And then finally his dad found his way to me, and I figured out that he had mycotoxin illness, and we started detoxing him. And his dad said, he was listening to a podcast by Dr. Mark Hyman and talking about how mold causes brain inflammation. So we ran a couple little simple tests that you can find in my mold guide. We ran the mycotoxin test that I'm offering on this webinar, and also did a few little screenings in labs that are in my mold guide. And the child has mold, and he's here on 3 psychiatric medications. When I looked at his dad, I'm like, this is mold and I can get him off of these medications. His dad just bust into tears because they've been through this long, hard journey that was unnecessary. And if they had been aware of this, or they had ordered a lab kit, or the kit that I'm offering, the at-home test kit to test to see if your home is safe, they could have known this a long time ago, and they wouldn't have had to go through all that they've been going through. So if I test my house once a year now, I recommend anyone with children test their house. It's $189. It is so inexpensive, and it could be really what's going on in you and your child's life. So how does mold grow and hide in your home, and where does it hide? So mold loves moisture and warmth. It likes basements, bathrooms, kitchen. That's its ideal environment. But it's really, like I said, not about visible mold. It can grow behind walls and under floors and air ducts. It releases toxins into the air that you breathe. These mycotoxins get into your furniture and can pass through your skin when you sit on your sofa and things like that. So really the only way to test your home to make sure it is safe is with that at-home test kit. Now, one of the things that I see that happens a lot is people will call mold remediators into their home, and they'll do air quality test. This is not what we're talking about. Air quality testing does not work to detect mycotoxins in your home. And the reason being, mycotoxins are the off-gassing of mold, and they are heavier than air. So they settle. They settle as dust on your furniture. They settle as dust in your sofa. And they get into your HVAC system and get blown through the air. And so it's a lot of people get hey, your home is safe, when it's really not safe. Also, air quality testing usually costs about $700, and it's not accurate for mycotoxin illnesses. And like I said, this at-home test kit is much less money. It's simple to do. You can do it yourself. You're just going to be collecting some dust and sending it off to a special laboratory. So what are some of the common myths about mold? So one of the things that I see all the time, we'll address a few of these myths, is if you can't see it, it's not there. This is false. Mold often grows in hidden places, like I said, HVAC systems, behind walls. Only black mold is dangerous. This is false. The mold I had exposure to was called aflatoxin. It made me so sick. We did not have black mold in our house. There's a whole subset of toxic molds that have been identified. A little mold can't hurt. Well, this is false too. If you have any sensitivity to mold whatsoever, it's like the dose that makes the poison, and your body doesn't have the ability to detox the mold properly. There's about 25% of the population that has a genetic SNP that their body doesn't recognize and detox mold properly. And once it hits a certain level, then what happens is this person the kettle tips and the person is now sick. That's why I say before you go get in this place, you need to test your home. Test your home. So what are the steps to protect your mold and health, your home and mold from health? So preventing mold is about controlling moisture and regular inspection. So that's why I do a mycotoxin test in my house every year. You got to keep humidity levels below 50%. You've got to fix any leaks immediately, and you got to make sure your home is well ventilated. even though you do all this, there is still the possibility that you can get mold behind walls. Water is a little magical thing. It can creep into places that we don't know it is there. For example, I had a shower in my master bath leaking a little bit, and I didn't even know that this was happening until the wood in my master bedroom on the floor buckled. And my husband, whom was a builder, he's like, okay, we got a water problem because our floor is buckling. And then we had to tear out the shower and do all of these things. If my husband hadn't have been a builder and recognized that, we would have had the potential of mold to grow in that situation. Anyway, but there are thousands of molds in the environment, and it's important to know whether or not your house has the toxic mold in it, or the toxic mold spores. So keep going here. The long-term effects of mold toxins on health. So what are the long-term impact of mold on our health? Well, one, mold is immunosuppressant. It can lead to things like autoimmune diseases, cancer. It's linked to dementia, creates memory problems, brain fog. It destroys mitochondria. Mitochondria are what give you your energy. So it's diseases like chronic fatigue syndrome. It can damage your liver. It can damage your kidneys. It's nephrotoxic, neurotoxic. It creates stress on the body. It's immunotoxic, hepatotoxic, carcinogenic, GI toxic, and reproductive toxic. So it literally touches every single aspect of your physical being. This is why it's important to make sure you're not being exposed. So detoxing your body from mold toxins. Once you've been exposed to mold toxins, detoxing, it's essential that you detox your body to recover. This is the only way to do that. So how do we do that? We use binders like activated charcoal and Z-Lite to trap and remove toxins. We support liver, and glutathione, which is the master antioxidant, with supplements such as N-acetylcysteine. We work to rebuild your gut health with probiotics. I have a comprehensive mold guide that will explain all of this to you in detail. Different mycotoxins require different binders, and there's timing to binders and all kinds of little special little trips, techniques. What I'm trying to say here, there's all kinds of little special techniques, and tricks to getting this done properly. All of this is in my mold guide. So, okay, at this slide, I want to take the time to introduce you to our at-home mold testing and mycotoxin lab kits. Okay, so what are these? So the at-home mold test kit is basically a Swiffer type kit that what you do is you will collect particles of dust and things from your home, and you send it off to a special lab that has only tests for the toxic or the harmful mycotoxins. If you have, if you're sick from mold, you want a score of less than 10. If your score is 10 to 15, this is questionable. If it's over 15, then it's not safe to live in this home if you're sensitive to mold. We also have a mycotoxin lab kit. This is a first morning urine test kit that tests for the toxic molds. You literally get up, urinate in a cup, send it off to a lab, and we can let you know if you've got high levels of these toxic molds. One of the things that I do a lot of families and young families and young moms, and I do some infertility things. And one of the things that I always have my families do is test their home for mold. And the reason that I do that is because I recently had a child established care, and she was 3 years old, and she had been diagnosed with developmental delay when really all she had was mold illness, because her mom heard me talking at another event about mycotoxin illness and knew that they had been in a moldy home where she was born, that it wasn't affecting mom and dad and the other sibling, so they weren't thinking it was affecting the baby, but then the baby was diagnosed with developmental delay and it ended up being mycotoxin illness. So we detoxed the child, she went to therapy, and she caught up with her normal milestones. I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible. Okay, so let's talk about the mycotoxin detox protocol. So once you've identified that you have mold in your system, now it's time to start the mycotoxin protocol. So what's this program designed to do? It's going to remove the toxins from your body using targeted binders. It's going to help rebuild your immune system, your gut health with key nutrients and probiotics. It's going to help support your liver and detox pathways. We're going to rebuild your mitochondrial function, and we're going to reset your body back to homeostasis, or back to equilibrium, once these toxins are out. So if I said anything in this webinar that you're interested in or that resonates with you, I really invite you to consider please testing your home, especially if you have children, or if you have a parent whom has been diagnosed with cognitive decline. Please test their home. If you find that you have mycotoxins in your home, I highly encourage you to do a mycotoxin lab kit. Or if you have an illness or some of the symptoms that I mentioned in this webinar, I highly encourage you to please, consider a mycotoxin lab kit. And like I said, link in and get my Mold Detox Protocol. It is completely free. I do this and I give this away because I am trying to create awareness around this epidemic that exists in our country, that our traditional medical system has no idea exists. So, okay, it's time for a live question and answer. So, oh my goodness, we got a lot of questions that came in here. So we're going to get started on those and go over any final thoughts or what next steps anyone needs to take if, that I didn't answer in this webinar. So let's see, first question.